everyone. Another book club for women on the move. And today is Thursday, February the 8th. The year is 2024. And we're going to discuss another fabulous book based on a true story. And I will turn it over to our host shortly after introductions. So I'm Cindy.
I'm Melody.
I'm Tammy.
I'm Vivian.
And I'm Sadie.
All right, so we're missing a few beautiful ladies tonight, but it's all good. The show must go on. So Melody is our host tonight, and I'll turn it over to her, and she'll share the book title, the author, and get us off to a great book club. Melody, it's all yours.
Hello, everybody. My book was The Radium Girls, The Dark Story of America's Shining Women. And it was by Kate Moore, sorry. I let me just say there's a couple ways that I picked books. I wanted to do something that was, a movie or TV based related. And I also rely on my girls because I've got some very prolific readers. And they gave me a couple choices, and this is one that just kind of really it sounded interesting, and I didn't know as much about it as I would just I was curious. And so I do apologize because it did have some hard subjects in it, but I have to say I I loved it at the same time because it really gave me knowledge that I just hadn't known, and really was very thought provoking in not just this area of this story, but just in general, and how things are advertised, how things are pushed through. Um, you just don't think about it. Oftentimes, we kind of go, oh, that's probably just a conspiracy theory. But then when you really start to look at some of these things and dig deep, you're like, oh, okay, this is interesting how it was twisted a certain way. And we'll get into that a little bit more as we talk about this a little bit more. And I guess what I would like to do, I'm kind of going by the internet and going by my own feeling for this right now. Typically we go, who was your favorite character? And I am going to come to that, but I wanted to know, it's filled with both triumph and tragedy, right? But which part of the story resonated with you guys? Um, what, what what did you feel most, I guess, either good or bad about? Because it was both. It was a good, so give me your thoughts.
I'll go ahead and start. When I first started reading the book, I wasn't aware of this from our history. So I'm so glad that you chose the book, Melody, because I learned a lot, as did you, based on what you just shared. From the very first chapter, the first page, I could tell what was unfolding. I was angry. I was angry. That's the feeling I had throughout the whole book. I thought the book was profound, loved it. So glad that I read it, but it angered me because the audacity of them, these were young, beautiful women in their 20s, in their teens. There were sisters,
Yes.
family members, and the atrocious physical maladies that they suffered. And, they thought it was just for fun. Oh, let's glow in the dark. Look at this beautiful dust. But the feeling that I had throughout the book was anger for what they allowed to happen when they knew that it was dangerous.
Yes.
I'd like to chime in. I agree, and I was saddened also to see those young ladies de just deteriorate throughout their time of working there, and not really understanding fully what it was. But I think the best part of the movie, the book, was when they finally was able to name their injuries or their cause of their illnesses based on the radium that they were working with, because they had fought so hard to get that known after going through so many deaths and so many tragedies, that finally, it happened, that they were able to put a nail on what was actually causing all the problems that those women were having.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm like Cindy. When I first started reading the book, I was like, oh, this is going to be so hard to read this book. I was like, okay, I guess I can, and the more I read it, the more interesting it became. The story as it unfolded, it was just unbelievable, what happened to them. And, and what they were doing, eating that radium. I was just like, it just blows the mind. But of course they didn't know because nobody told them. They had no idea. And so it was just so sad, that the men, that were in charge, they just lied to them about it and told them, oh no, it's fine, because they wanted to make their buck. And that's the way so much stuff is nowadays, is that they just want to make a buck. I know my daughter, her boyfriend, his parents are doctors, and a lot of times, when they've been here, if I had something in the kitchen, they were looking at what the ingredients were. And if it was some kind of weird name, they didn't want to use it, or he didn't want to use it. And I think that's true. I think there's a lot of stuff that's in our food and in the stuff that we ingest that might not be that great for us nowadays. So, not that I do anything about it myself, but it just kind of makes you wonder, about the stuff that they sell to us, and whether it is okay, even if it passes the Food and Drug Administration. Is it really, good for us? And but yeah, the book was very interesting. I didn't really have any trouble reading it once I started and got into it. It was terribly sad, and I think my favorite character was the lady that she filed suit, and she finally won. I can't remember her name, Carolyn or Charlotte or
Catherine?
What's that?
Catherine Wiley.
Yes, Catherine, I think.
Catherine. Okay, Catherine. Yeah, she suffered an awful lot trying to get through that period of time to be successful in winning that suit. So she was probably my favorite character. I think she weighed like 61 pounds when she finally passed away. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah. Sadie, did you have any thoughts? Oh, unmute.
I'm with Cindy. It made me mad. The book made me mad because it's still happening, today. And you're reading it and you're going, what have I ate? Or, they put it in toothpaste. They put it in, it was in everything.
Makeup.
Makeup, toothpaste, everything.
Elixirs.
Yeah. And that was just, it was horrible. And the company just wanted to make money. They didn't care about their workers at all, just to make money on it. And Catherine was my favorite because she held on, and she was not going to die till they got a ruling on her case on there. So she was my favorite character, but it was sad, very sad book. Yeah.
I have to say, I was a little worried because it is more of a documentary, so I was worried that it would be really dry. I think she did a really good job of really bringing the girls' stories together. And even, the doctors and the different things, and it felt it felt historical in a sense, but it also really felt like a story that it was a it was, I don't want to say enjoyable because it was a hard topic, but it
Mhm.
read very well. And I loved how she highlighted and she really honored each of those women. And so that was really, I was like, okay, this is good. I have to say, I did go ahead after reading this, I did watch the movie.
So
Oh,
There,
there's a movie.
there's
Okay,
a
I wasn't
movie. Okay.
aware.
there is a movie, and I was very disappointed in the movie, and I think you guys will be too. I believe from what I could see with the movie, I don't think they got rights to be able to actually talk about some of the women, or
Mm.
there must have been something because it was very it was just done differently than the book. And so I was kind of disappointed because I didn't feel like it really gave the story, the full story. Um,
What's the name
but
of the movie and where, how can we find it?
I want to say, is it I will look it up because there is it you look up Ray here, let's see if I can look it up real quick. I will look it up and I'll make sure we have it by the end of the time. So let me go on to another little discussion here and let me look up while we're doing this.
Well, I was interested in the villains, that were, I'm like, well, at least they went down in history for the horrible, horrible men that they were.
Mhm.
And at least she got that documented.
Yes.
Um, I'm sure their families or, their heirs probably don't feel very proud of them and what their actions were in regards to that time of their lives. So I was really pleased that she was so specific in her documentation of
Yes.
their actions
Mhm.
in the book.
I agree. And how and I just it was shame on lawyers too.
Mhm.
They could only find one person to
Right.
help represent them even when they knew it was wrong. They just were
Thank you.
afraid of these companies. And it just it what I have to say that I respected so much about these women was that they were in pain. They
Mm.
obviously were going through so much, but what they were trying to do was make people aware because they knew that these watch factories were still going on in other places and
Correct.
they
Mhm.
knew
Yeah.
people didn't know. And it just was it was still amazing to me too that when when they did dig up the sisters, how that there was still they
Mhm.
said for 100 years there'll still be the radium in there.
All
Mhm.
right.
Mhm.
And it just to me it was like that was so empowering, even that the jaw that was left in the drawer and the damage it did just from that.
Mhm.
I it just I'm still I'm still baffled. I As much as it was so hard, I'm so glad I read it because it really did. And this is what I guess I want to ask you guys is how does this affect you now? Like when new products come on, or and I'm not just talking products, maybe new foods like Tammy was talking about, or you know, even like right now, there's weight loss stuff. There's so
Mhm.
many different things that are going on. And then there's also jobs that are like, oh, come do this job. How do you think that affects us today?
Well, I won't eat any of that. I mean, I need to lose weight, but I won't take any of that weight loss magic stuff because I don't know what that's going to do to my body.
Right.
Mhm.
I don't care what they say, about it being some kind of magic bullet. Uh, I don't think that, the only way to me to lose weight is, to not eat as much, you know, and that's the bottom line. And, walk or, you know, something like that. So I, I don't believe in that. And I'm not sure what else I would eat that might be, dangerous like that. I certainly wouldn't eat it without looking at the packaging.
I've been told don't eat anything that you can't pronounce the word.
Pronounce.
Yeah.
They jumble things up so much that you don't know what you're eating. And so I've been really starting to try to stay away from preservatives that
Yes.
I don't know what what their source is or where they come from or anything like that. So it's really eye-opening to know that these things are happening and people are lying about it like it's nothing.
Yeah.
It's really scary.
Correct, it is. I've always been very health and food conscious because my mother was a registered dietitian.
Oh.
So, but then things years ago, what was acceptable in terms of eating, things have evolved over the years. Because think about it, when all of us were little, they said margarine is better than butter. No, butter's better than margarine, so it's like we continue to learn more and evolve. But I always try to, I'm always reading about health and fitness and wellness and continue to change things once I know better. Like people have been using antiperspirant for years. I stopped using antiperspirant probably 20, maybe 30 years ago or more because I knew that the zinc and the aluminum, those can cause cancer. So I've used deodorant. It's hard to find, it was harder 25, 30 years ago just to find deodorant. Now it's much easier. It's like you'll see Secret and Dove. Oh, we have deodorant now, no zinc, no aluminum. So but it just brings to light the fact that we do need to be ever so careful. And then one last thing I want to say about that is it makes you wonder why we have so many more children with autism now. And now a lot of learning disabilities have to do with parents being on drugs, fetal alcohol syndrome, drugs, and then that causes learning disabilities because I definitely see that with students who I am privy to information knowing that mother was on drugs, and it's like, oh, you just want to. And then when I volunteer at Kern Medical, and it used to be, I've been volunteering there since 2006. Years ago, there were very few babies, few and far in between, who were withdrawing from drugs. Now, all the time. There are few in there all the time. They're being given morphine and those babies are in pain. They scream bloody murder. They barely sleep. So, but I do believe a lot of, and then look at how these girls are maturing. They're like 10 years old and they look like grown women.
They sure are. That's right.
So I believe it has to do with some of these preservatives in the food, what people are eating.
Not only
Linda,
that, look at how big chickens are.
it's true. That's very true.
Chickens are almost as big as turkeys.
Right.
Oh my goodness. Linda, I noticed that you just joined us. Welcome. Did you have any feelings towards the book?
This book was very, very hard for me to get through. I would read a section and I would just have to put it down. And I read a section, I get so mad, that it just seemed like they couldn't get the justice that they deserve. And then I would get so angry with the company. That this is killing them and you won't help. You're trying to make them like the villain. It's their that's causing it. So it had my emotions all over the place. Most of it was anger.
Yeah, that's what Cindy said as well. And I agree. There was so much because it wasn't just the company and the radium. We knew that was a problem. It was
Attitude.
I'm sorry to say this, but there was a lot of men who wanted to discount these women, and then they wouldn't help them. even
Right.
though they saw how devastating it was and that there was definitely a problem. And it just it made me angry, sad, and just go, okay. But then I want to honor these women, because if they hadn't have done that,
Thank you.
Mhm.
where would we be today? You know, I mean, they fought really hard, and
Yes.
it was inspiring to me that even on death's doorstep,
Yeah,
they they were fighting for each other, but also really for all the women and dial painters all around. Because
correct.
I mean, I just think to myself, I throughout the whole thing, I kept looking like at my old watch. I remember my old watch, and I remember it used to glow, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Mm.
You know, I was like, I had no idea. It just never occurred to me. And anyways, so it just made me really, really feel.
Well, they were the start of the workman's compensation um, in the country, I think,
Yes,
from their situation. And also, I think the last bit of the book wasn't that clock factory that had moved a short distance away.
Right.
Uh, it didn't close until 1976
thank you.
or
It
something.
Under a new
still,
name.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's still, and what was sad at that time, I mean, now I think things would be a little bit different now, only because of our social media and the fact that we are so connected, whether it be on the internet, the news, whatever. I do think, of course, everybody's going to twist their story the way they twist it. Where what was so sad to me was, here's this company, it moved to another town, not, I mean, miles away, but still, I think they said it was an hour to 2 hours maybe away. Um, and they still hadn't heard of the fight that these ladies were going through, and
Correct.
until somebody actually pointed out, and then they're like, wait a second, I think, isn't this kind of something we're doing? And it was like, oh my goodness, it just, it killed me that it was like, oh my gosh, people need to know this.
Yeah.
But it does go to show you how it is important to have news, um so that people know what's going on in the world. But it also, on the other side of that, was, here this company kept twisting and twisting the narrative. And there were people with their hands tied, that they couldn't say what they truly thought. I think, so a part of me wants to say that I would have done it anyways, whether or not I would have been, sued or whatever. But it killed me to know that there were so many people on the back end that knew
You
this
know,
was not good.
speaking of twisting, I think the worst thing that they did was that first girl that died, to label her as having syphilis.
Syphilis.
Oh,
That was the
Ooh,
worst, and it just ruined her whole reputation, and she couldn't
thank you.
fight for herself or anything. And they just labeled her and put her away like she was nothing.
yes, yes,
Correct. And the sad thing, look, those ladies were making excellent money during that
yes,
time. And then they had them recruiting. The company was growing, the company was making a lot of money, and they were paying them well. And look at all the ones, their sisters, their
Mhm.
cousins, their friends. I mean, it was just horrific what happened. But then, even after all of this came out, some of them continued to work there.
Mm-hmm.
So, some people will, some see it, some won't, some that say it's like, oh, well, that happened to you. But some of them, they fought because they just wanted to get better. They were running out of money. They didn't have the funds to go to the doctor. And, the fact that, they weren't able to have children, or they're limping, they're losing their teeth, oh my goodness, these ladies. And when going to court, when all you want to do is stay in bed, and you feel like, they
Mhm.
felt like they were on death's door, but courageously they did it for each other, and then they showed up. The amount of courage that they showed was exemplary.
Yes.
And then the town turned against them when they started fighting them. Then their neighbors didn't like them, and because people were losing their job, and to feel bad and not have any friends around, it was really hard for them.
Right.
It was. It was. It also just I had a thought and then I just kind of I don't I'll come back to it.
Throughout the whole book, they were never referred to as women or ladies. It's always girl,
Mm.
girl. And I highlighted one segment. I think it was when Elizabeth, after she had been, it was Catherine, after she had been fired and she was trying to sue, and they said because of the statute of limitation, all duty we had to that girl as our employee cease. So
Mm.
it's like they always saw them as the girls, like we're the daddy figure. You do what we say, when we say, how we say, and we'll treat you like we want to. You have no voice. You're just a girl.
Mm.
Right. Right. I guess what I was thinking is we saw what the radium did even like with when the jaw fell out and was left. Um these women, many of them went on to have children. And I don't know that backstory. That would be something I would need to research. But what happened with those children?
Thank you. Did they have any health ramifications from this?
Yes, I know. Not only, well, I mean, for one, their parent, their moms were involved in this thing, but also just health wise, I just would have liked to have known. And the only reason this just hit so many different things. I mean, like there's some of the questions that they ask, like in today's world, how do you see this? And one of the biggest things that I personally was close to is my cousin was in Vietnam, and he was he was in one of those units that was doused with Agent Orange.
Mm.
And for so many years, the government has said Agent Orange, we didn't do that. It wasn't this, it wasn't that, it wasn't during this time. It was, whatever. And now, they have come clean with a lot of different things. But what ended up happening is he did get bone cancer.
Mm.
He has passed away since then. But what what they discovered from that was his children now have ramifications from the Agent Orange. His oldest son died of a heart attack that was related to it. His daughter, his youngest daughter, has had to have a full mastectomy, and his middle son also has some bone loss with possible cancerous things in there.
Oh,
And they have actually been able to, like, I don't know whether it's tested,
connect. Mhm.
connect it that even though it was him and whatever he gave to them,
Genetically.
it genetically it affected them. And it made me think of these ladies, and I thought to myself, oh, if it stays in there that long, it's got to have also affected
Passed
their
on.
children.
Correct.
Well,
So
that's why when we go to the doctor now, first thing they ask is your history, your parents' history, your family history, because it's all related.
Mm-hmm.
absolutely, absolutely. So anyways, so I know I'm so sorry that it was so hard, but at the same time, I'm so glad I read it because I do want to honor those women and their inspiration that they were. Um, I guess that would be what I would end on to a certain extent is how were you inspired by the strength of these shining girls and how can you carry onward to incite change in our lives now?
I could think the lesson that I've taken away from this book is that you never give up. You just keep on fighting, even though it looks like you're losing, losing, losing. And at some point, I think the ladies look past just how it would benefit them and their families, but they thought about the other ladies in the community, in the state, in the nation. If they could get these laws changed, these loopholes closed that the company was using the skirt the lawsuits, then it would be so much better, not only for women workers, but for all workers in general. Resilience and determination and courage. Because, I think of my jaw, I was pulling my jaw and putting it in a peel box. I'll be in my bed probably crying somewhere. But they had the courage, the fortitude, the resilience to keep fighting, not just for themselves, but for the benefit of all of us.
Correct. That was very well said, Linda. Yes,
Very
I
well.
ditto that. Yes. And I would just add that sometimes we may think the fight is so small. I think when we go through challenges ourselves, it's not just for us, it's so that we can help somebody else. So I learned from this, but if you keep it all to yourself, it's like share. It's like we have to be vulnerable. Sometimes people want to have an attitude that they're perfect. None of us are, but some people want of the outside world to think that their life is perfection, all is great. But how do we relate to each other most is when we share our vulnerabilities and when we share our weaknesses and how we overcame. So it takes strength to do that. And if you're just one, it's like if you just help one person, it was worth it because you helped that one. And those ladies, it was beautiful that they found strength in each other to stand up. And permanent changes in our workplace have occurred because of the Radium Girls.
Yes, absolutely. I have to too, something that just hit me as well as much as there was different men and other people who did studies in their lives. What I found from these women as much as they were frustrated and angry, they found room for grace. So even this doctor who he kept saying, don't do that, don't do that. And then when they came back and asked him, and he's like, well, yeah, I knew this, but then he kind of turned on them because he got pressure. But then he came back and helped them, and they still gave him that grace. Um, you know, just people after people kind of turned them away, but at the same time, they needed them. And it talk about forgiveness, and I don't even know that they necessarily forgave, but they allowed that space to get the help that they needed and moved past their frustration with these people and used it for them. So I forgot that I was going to add that.
And another thing that I was thinking about is the fact that they sued based on the radium in their bodies, but they had multiple things that they could sue for because look how long they were seeing this one doctor that wasn't a doctor at all. When they found out that he really wasn't a doctor, they could have sued the company for that. And
They should have.
they should have, yes. And some of the parents could have sued because the company was hiring these girls, letting the girls lie about their age and hiring them at 12 and 13 years
13.
old. The parents could have sued for that. It was so many things that came out of that problem that could have just exploded with lawsuits.
Well, I mean, it goes to show you how we've changed, because there's no longer that kind of like children have to have permits. There has to be a rigorous thing with that way, as young girls. The excuse me, the people who discounted them so often, the fact that that company wasn't held to that higher standard, all of those changed after them because people realized, okay, this could be a really big problem.
Exactly.
And I think our we built upon that. And also, I mean, you gotta, it's elephant in the closet, but women's rights were not at all, looked at.
Correct.
And so, and children, you know, oh, well, fine. It's just, I don't know. And I just realized I said 100 years. It's it's 1,500 years that the effects of radium will finally wear off.
Mm,
That's what they've actually, I was like, I knew I was wrong on that. That's a
So think
long.
about where those companies were sitting at,
Mhm.
and even when they tore them down, like you
yes.
said, thousands, so many years, that radium is still there,
To this day, yes.
and people are living there or
They're
whatever.
building homes on top of it.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, you know, the close to home here, that's like Hinkley.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, you know, it's just amazing. You know, I don't know. It just made me really think, gosh, I I really can't take things for granted. I need to look at the
Yeah.
whole picture, not
Mm.
just my, you know, oh, that sounds good. You know, it it educated me, I would have to
Mhm.
say.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we just drove by Hinckley and there's 1,500 people that live there.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's funny. My daughter had never seen Aaron Brockovich, and so we watched it the other day,
did you?
and it's like, oh, it's still such a good movie, but
It is
It is.
so good.
it's one of those things. Sadie, I felt like I stepped over you. Did you wanted to say
No,
something?
I was just going to say when Vivian was talking, at that time, there was no labor laws for kids. And there was, women didn't have rights at that time. They couldn't, so a lot of the laws changed afterwards when they ran into the problems. And you see on TV all the time these lawyers, different things, water contaminated, this, that, so it's evolving.
So in a sense, they were pioneers, you know?
Mhm.
I mean,
Mhm.
really, it was a men's world and they took it on. And I so as hard and as angry and sad as the story was, I am so glad that I read it. And I felt bad as I was reading. I was like, oh man, I picked a really, you know, hard one. Really. And it was thick and it was like, oh man, I'm so
Yeah,
sorry.
I was like, oh, Melody.
Don't give Melody
The first,
anything again, you know.
first few pages, I was like ready to throw it down.
Uh, and
But
it's so
it was interesting, I thought I'm going to keep reading, and I did, and it just kept getting more and more interesting. And I thought, well,
yeah.
this is going to be an interesting book.
Yes, yes. So I did look up, it is called Radium Girls, and right now, Prime Video has it.
Oh,
Um, again, I'm gonna say, I mean, it's okay. I mean, it does tell a little bit of the story, but it's nothing like the book.
okay.
I mean, most movies are like that, I know, but I really, there's some things that I really felt like some blaring things to me that was left out. They did, you know, highlight some areas that, you know, was important, but um, so anyways, there you there you have it. Um, I guess, does anyone have anything else that they wanted to add to the story?
I'll just say thank you for choosing the book. I'm glad
Yeah,
that I read it. And
I'm
even
glad
though
I
it
read.
was a hard read,
Yeah.
I'm better informed. I learned something about our history that I wasn't aware of. And these were powerful women. So it's like what they went through was hard, but at the end, they had victory and it shows their strength and courage. So
Mhm.
power to the women.
Thank you for sharing, Melody.
Well, thank you guys for indulging me because I'm so glad. I really I I I liked it. I I was angry, yes, you're right, but I just feel like I know more and I feel better informed. So
Well, you
so
know
thank
that old saying, if you don't know your history, you're prone to repeat it. So this was important
Yeah.
to learn this.
yeah.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, Melody, thank you for choosing Radium Girls. We thoroughly enjoyed it, and we'll conclude tonight's book club on that note.